Perhaps for all of her deceit, her greatest sin is the false hope she gave true cancer sufferers who were inspired by her story and her glowing health. She also promised money to charities, promises she broke. But even more damaging, she's broken the inherent trust we place in each other. And despite all her riddles, the only thing Belle can't spin is the truth. Do you know what the definition of truth is?
Yes.
What's your definition of truth?
Speaking with honesty and with clear definition around fact.
And what's your definition of a lie?
Well, obviously the opposite of that.
A false statement made with deliberate intent to deceive, an intentional untruth, a falsehood.
And I've not been intentionally untruthful. I've been openly conveying and speaking about what was my reality and what is my reality today.
And will you accept that your reality does not actually match reality?
It doesn't match your normal or your reality, but I also know that I'm not...
Belle's normal suggests a difficult childhood. She says she doesn't know her father, she's estranged from her mother and brother, and spent much of her younger years moving frequently. But is that reason enough for a woman who never has a simple answer, even when it comes to her age? You're 23, right? Well, actually, how old are you?
I've always been raised as being currently a 26-year-old.
How old are you?
Well, I live knowing, as I've always known, that I would be 26.
Okay, Belle.
This
is a really, really simple question. How old are you?
I believe that I'm 26.
And?
I have two birth certificates and I've had my name changed 4 times. The identity crisis there is big, but that was my normal when I was growing up, Tara. That.
What do you know the truth to be now?
That's probably a question that we'll have to keep digging for, because it's not something I've ever understood or had answers around.
Right, so when you needed to file some financial documents, how did you choose the birth date you gave, if you don't know?
With my most recent deed poll paper, which has the younger of the age and the most recent of the name.
Right, so currently, then, according to those documents, you're 23.
Correct.
It would be funny if it wasn't so serious, and the really serious side to this is those who were caught out by Belle. The Schwartz family believed and befriended Belle. Sadly, their 7-year-old son Joshua does have terminal brain cancer. What type of an apology would you like to make to the Schwartz family?
Their family means a lot to me because of the care and the love and the friendship that we had grown over the last year.
They believe that you pumped them for information about their son's symptoms so you could take them on as your own.
That family was one that I did have little interaction with.
That's not how they describe it. They say you cried with... They cried with you, you cried with them, your children played together.
I understand that they're hurting, but I also know that I never questioned Joshua or his mother about his symptoms.
Along with the Schwartz family, there have been a number of charities Belle has pledged money to which have not seen a cent, and there are disputed donations of up to $300,000. This was Belle's undoing. She promoted her promise to raise money for various charities, but when the funds failed to materialise, her deception was exposed. In March this year, the act was up, and she's been trying to lie her way out of it ever since. I mean, you praised your community for raising $5,000 for 2 charities that you nominated.
But then when you were pressed on it because that money never showed up, you said, well, in fact, we didn't raise that money, despite praising the community for raising that amount of money. And, you know, a portion of that money gets sent to one charity, but only after you're questioned by the media.
I took my books and my finances and my accounting to business managers and accountants, and I said, I'm way in over my head with this. Can you please help me out and get this up to date? And 8 months on, it's still not finalised.
I don't know that you need to be an expert in accounting to know that you don't make promises that you're not sure you can fill. So
I still stand by those promises.
Well, you can't have it both ways, Belle. You can't say, you know, my community has raised this amount of money. Oh, actually, no, they didn't. What did you do, misspeak? Or is it the accountant's fault that you made that claim when in fact it's not the truth?
And I'm keeping those promises, Tara.
You didn't fulfil them and you misrepresented yourself yet again.
I am not misrepresenting myself.
For many, she was the wellness warrior. Her good health was the great hope for her followers, especially those battling cancer themselves. What is really worrying is how many of them may have given up conventional treatment to follow Belle's alternative path. Again, Belle tries to dodge her responsibility.
But I was not an expert in anyone else's health, and
Excuse me, but don't be naive now. I mean, you are appealing to an incredibly vulnerable audience, incredibly vulnerable people. Mm-hmm. You have a responsibility to make sure your story is right.
I'm not trying to get away with anything. I'm not trying to smooth over anything.
Well,
it's not easy for me to be here. It's not easy for me to relive and relive and relive detail.
How do you think it is for the people who followed you, mm-hmm. whose heart went out to you when you wrote about how unwell you were, how well you were, your progress, your decline? These people who cried for you. Have you thought about them? I know you sit here and tell me how you feel. Have you thought about how they're feeling at the moment?
In the same way I just said, I put them in my shoes and I know that they're feeling the same way I feel.
Well, some of them want you to go to jail. That's how they feel.
I know that they feel that way. I've seen the emails. I've seen some of the comments. I'm on the receiving end of all of that, Tara. And I take responsibility for how this has unfolded.
Do you take responsibility for driving any people away from conventional medicine in seeking treatment for their cancer?
That would be really heartbreaking to me because I never intended on doing that.
Do you accept that that's what you might have done?
I accept that might have happened.
While she concedes she might have caused damage to others, extraordinarily, Belle maintains she's the real victim here. The lie continues, to herself and to the rest of us.
But I've been going through this, Tara, since last year. Not since the media broke it, but since months and months before that. So this has been a really private ordeal for me to know where I stand.
Sure, I mean, but shouldn't it have been a public one? I mean, you were happy for the lies to be public. What about the truth?
It was going to be public.
I just wonder, Belle, if, and I don't know if you're at a stage where you'll ever admit it, but whether you just didn't know what you were getting yourself into. That you probably thought you weren't doing any harm, but that you thought you could get away with it.
There was nothing to get away with, Tara.
Oh, of course there was. There was adulation, there's sympathy, there's a community who loves you. There's huge amounts to get away with.
There's a community that I love.
I'm just wondering if you kind of were playing in a grown-up's world without realising it, that it was all going to end badly.
It didn't need to. Once I started to figure out where I stood and what reality actually was, and I had received the definitive, no, you do not have cancer, then that was something that I had to come to terms with. That takes a lot. And it was really traumatising. I was feeling a huge amount of grief. And
grief for not having cancer?
No, that I had been lied to, and that I felt like I had been taken for a ride. It took me a lot to unpack that. And once I was strong enough, I was ready to come out and speak with my community about it, and I had a definitive date. And that date was only 10 days before the media broke it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
To have your say about tonight's show, you can find us on Facebook. Coming up, what if your child was abducted by terrorists?
Oh, Jesus. Oh, Jesus.
Held hostage for ransom?
It was the beginning of the very worst nightmare.
Should our government pay up?
What does a family do when a child is taken hostage? Where do you begin?
If you pay a ransom, you're going to be prosecuted.
Inside the lucrative world of kidnapping.
Anybody with an AK-47 and a Toyota is potentially in the kidnapping business.
That's next on 60 Minutes.